Recorded. All right, so let's get started. We're going to talk about prepping your nervous system for challenging situations. So, the holidays are upon us, and so we have a lot more family gatherings, a lot more exposure to what I call the triggers of stress. Whether it's, Uncle Eddie who's saying asinine things at dinner, or or the pressure that we put on ourselves to be perfect, during this time of year, or even, people asking uncomfortable questions, right? Like, I thought you were on a diet, or, that diet must not be working out, or, things that just people say that just are ridiculous, right? And we make them mean something about ourselves, which causes the stress response. And, so just I want to explain. So, your brain is just a series of neural pathways, right? And those neural pathways get created by your experiences that have been repeated. Okay. And so it looks like this: there's a trigger, then you have a thought about that. That thought creates a feeling, and then you act from that feeling. But all of that happens in nanoseconds. Okay. This is why you can find yourself like standing in front of the refrigerator eating something when you don't even remember walking into the kitchen. Okay. Or why you find yourself doing this sarcastic attack on your mother before you even know what is happening. Right. And it's because there was a trigger, and then this thought and feeling kind of happens in an instant. And before you know it, you're doing the action. All right. There is nothing wrong with you because of this. This is the way our brain works, because our brain wants us to conserve energy. And so, as much as possible, it is putting these neural pathways in place to save energy, because it doesn't take very much energy for this to all happen if you don't have to think about it. So the trick here is to rewire that neural pathway. You have to actually engage the front part of your brain, right? Which is the prefrontal cortex, where you make decisions. It's kind of the thinking part of your brain. Okay. And so we're going to talk about how you do that. And it's actually fairly simple. And your brain's going to want to tell you this isn't going to work because it's too simple. But I'm telling you, it works. And it works in anything that you want to rewire. Okay. So, step number one, and I did put a worksheet in the group. And I'll also email it out too for everybody that's on the list, email list. But it's basically a worksheet for working through what are your most common triggers, right? And your brain might want to say, well, I don't really know, but I'm going to call you on that because you do know, right? Just think about last Thanksgiving and think about the time that you had a reaction that you wish you wouldn't have. What happened, right? That is the trigger. Either somebody said something to you, or you put too much pressure on yourself, or whatever. That's the trigger. So what I want you to do is I want you to write down your 3 most common triggers for the situations where you want to change your response. Okay. So like, if you know that you get real sarcastic when you get stressed out, think about a specific situation that happened recently or even last year during the holidays that set you off. Okay. So just write down your triggers. And then for each trigger, I just want you to list one thought that you're usually thinking when that thing happens. So for example, when I'm thinking I need to do everything, let's see, for Thanksgiving, let's say, where I cook everything and So Thanksgiving meal is a trigger for me because I start thinking it all has to be perfect. Okay. I think it has to be perfect. And that thought makes me feel really, really pressured. All right. So what I want you to do is just think about the triggers and then think about what is it that I'm thinking when this trigger happens usually. Okay. And it's just your default. So think about the trigger and then what do I think when that happens? And just use the first thing that comes out because that's usually what it is. Okay. So we have, again, this neural pathway that is the trigger and then the thought. So this is what I want you to do first is identify your triggers and then what are the thoughts that are associated with those triggers. And then I just want you to pick one of them, one of the trigger thought combinations to work on for the next couple of weeks. Okay. So once you determine, which one you want to work on, which trigger, the very first thing I want you to do is think about how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel when that thing happens? Because guess what? You get to pick. You are in total control of this. You have to be proactive about it and you have to use the front part of your brain, but you can interrupt your model here and specifically and intentionally feel the way you want to feel. Okay. So how do you want to feel when the trigger happens? Do you want to feel calm? Do you want to feel curious? Do you want to feel amused? Do you want to feel neutral? I actually like the neutral feeling a lot, right? Because there's a lot of times I can't get myself to amused. Okay. But I can get myself to neutral. Like this means nothing about me. This is their problem, not my problem. Okay. Then step number 2, once you determine how you want to feel, then you have to figure out what will I have to be thinking in order to feel this way. So you're basically reverse engineering here. So you get yourself feeling calm. And what would I have to think? So let's look at the Uncle Eddie situation where he makes a sexist comment, right? That's my trigger. If I want to feel calm in that situation, what would I have to be thinking? First thing that comes up for me is what he believes means nothing about me. And that would make me feel calm. Or in the situation, if I wanted to feel curious about that situation, I might be thinking, I wonder who taught him that in his childhood. So you see what I did there? Okay, so you have to reverse engineer. What do you have to be thinking to feel the way you want to feel? Okay. Then once you imagine, okay, I'm calm. What would happen if I was calm? What would I be doing if I was calm? Or what would I be doing if I was amused? Right? Or what would I be doing if I was curious? So you might be asking questions. You might be ignoring it. You might be chuckling. You might be whatever, right? So what are those actions that are going to be happening there based on your new feeling? Okay. And then what you want to do is you want to, before the whole situation happens, you want to visualize that. So you want to visualize Uncle Eddie saying something stupid. Okay. And then you want to visualize yourself thinking your new thought. I wonder who taught him that in his youth. And then you feel the calm and you visualize yourself doing the actions. And you sit with that for a while until you can see it. Until you can see it in your brain. And if you're not a visual, like inner vision kind of person, you might hear it. It might be more of a tactile kind of situation, or it might be like you're feeling it in your body. It might be more of a sensation. For me, I can actually see it, but not everybody can, which I was really shocked by that. When I asked my husband, I was like, well, can't you see that in your brain? He's like, yeah, no. So he can hear it, right? So everybody is a little bit different, but you got to get to the place where you can actually visualize and really get into, this is the way that this is going to go. Okay. And then the final trick to this is associate that. So this is your plan, right? Here's what, when this happens, here's what I'm going to think, here's what I'm going to feel, and here's what I'm going to do. So you want to associate that think, feel, do cycle with a symbol. Okay. It could be anything you want. It could be a Post-it note with a word on it. It could be a ring on your finger. It could be anything you want. Just be creative, make it fun. Okay. And then what you want to do is you want to post wherever you think this thing is likely to happen. You want to post that somewhere where you can see it and nobody else will probably notice it. If you ever come to my house, I have little Post-it notes all over my cabinets, right? To help remind me that I'm in control of food. And it really, really helps me to connect that symbol with my plan. Okay. So this is a great way to just be proactive about how do you want to react. Now, I will tell you, sometimes this works the very first time. Other times you have to practice. Okay. It just all depends on how deep this neural pathway is. Because sometimes you might not catch yourself, right? This is like the situation where you end up in the refrigerator and you didn't really realize how you got there, right? Sometimes you don't catch yourself. You just have to get really, really curious about catching yourself. And don't beat yourself up, right? So if, for example, Uncle Eddie says something tomorrow and you lose your shit, don't beat yourself up for that. Just get curious about it, right? Get curious about what was the trigger? What did I make that mean about me? Because it's really not what Uncle Eddie says. It is really about what you are making it mean about you. Okay. And then that causes a stress response. It has nothing to do with what he actually said. It's what you make it mean about you. Okay. All right. I am going to put us back into gallery view. And let me know what questions you guys have. You have to unmute you. Hi, Susie.
Hi.
So, what questions do you have for me?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it is something that I have been thinking a lot about, with going into doing some things, some outreaches, and stuff like that I'm going to be doing. The main thing that I am kind of faced with is our family get-togethers are going to be so small and not a whole lot this year. So, but my big challenge ahead of me is I'll be speaking at a conference And the message that the message that I have is not some how would you say, a meek little thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Holly, I think you know me enough that you know that I have no problem in coming out and being bold and speaking about what needs to be spoken about. But then for the response when there's negativity that comes, that I will be able to stay calm. That's what I have been visualizing myself,
Mm-hmm.
because the first thing that happens is my heart raises and my mind takes off.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah. So if the trigger is negative feedback, the question you need to ask yourself is, what am I making that mean about me?
mhm,
Right. And it's probably something like, oh my God, I must be wrong.
yeah, yeah,
Right. And
yes,
so, and that causes a stress response, right? So that
yes,
makes you feel anxious or inadequate or whatever, right? So,
yeah,
oh my God, I must be wrong, anxious, and then you get defensive.
yeah.
Okay. And so, if you want to feel calm in that situation, what would you have to be thinking?
I would have to be thinking that I may have stepped on somebody's toes, or there was a conviction somewhere, or um, my delivery was not correct, was not
Right. And
right.
instead of like a negative connotation to it, maybe it's it seems they didn't understand. How could I be clearer?
Yes, yes,
Right. And so, like, from a curiosity perspective, right, to say, oh, well, tell me what you heard. Right.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, yeah. And so rather than jumping to, I must be wrong, you have to practice. Okay, if somebody gives me negative feedback, I'm going to be curious about this and assume that there's a communication problem. It
yeah,
means nothing about me personally. It's just there's a communication gap. And how do we fix
yeah,
that?
yeah, and would open the door up to have further discussion and
Hmm.
further communication on the subject and the topic of whatever,
Hmm.
to calmly discuss things further.
Yep. And then another scenario, just so you know, Susie, there are going to be haters, right?
Right.
Who they're
Yeah.
not curious. They're just going to want to disagree with you. And you get
Yeah.
to choose, I love you, but bye.
Yeah.
Right? I love you, but bye.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you might want to practice both of those situations, right? Like practice visualizing, okay, this is what I would say. This is, if this, because what you want to do is visualize that enough times that you actually calm your nervous system down, right? And it's just going to
Yeah.
take practice, right? That's the key to calming your nervous system down is you have to actually do the thing that wires it up
Yeah.
lots
Yeah.
of times, right? Until your
Yeah.
brain knows, oh, I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
And then it'll calm itself down.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would write about that because I know you like to write. I would write about that and say, okay, just write about the whole thing. Like just make it up, right? Okay, this person says that's so stupid. I can't believe you actually talked about that.
Yeah.
And then what would I do if that happened?
Okay. I will.
And then associate a symbol with that, right? Of
Right.
some sort.
Yeah. Maybe have a post-it note or something on wherever that I'll be speaking that
Mm-hmm.
would remind me of to not
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you'll probably have a notebook, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you could have a Post-it note on there, or you could draw a tree on there, or, a heart, right? Like, what would love do?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
All right. What about you, Cindy? What's your question?
I mean, I'll be okay tomorrow because the person that sets this off is not going to be there. But my problem, well, I don't think it's a problem. I know that I've heard that some people think in colors. I think in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
As I had worked in physical therapy assisting for almost 24 years, and I always knew what it was inside because I'm thinking in 3D and I know the function, the motion you want. And my brain, maybe I do see it too. Like you said, don't you
Mhm.
see this problem? I can see this problem,
Mhm.
but what sets me off, and I think we talked about a problem once before about how it made me feel that not being trusted. I won't speak on that issue, but I think you
Yep.
remember.
Yep.
And what upset me more about that is they didn't see that what they did cause another problem on another level, that had they told me, that problem never would have happened.
Mhm.
And that made me mad because they
Yeah.
didn't want to see the repercussions of they did. Not that, yeah, they didn't trust me and that ticked me off.
Yeah, and
But
so that they don't trust me is your thought, right? So
right,
that was that
right.
particular someone not telling you something that you felt you needed to know, right?
Yeah.
Was the trigger.
Trigger.
And then the thought was they don't trust me, right? And that
Yeah.
made you feel betrayed.
Yeah, shut down. Yeah, I shut down. I'm a person that just shuts
Right.
down, but I walk away. I don't necessarily people please. I just walk away because
Yeah.
I got other issues that are causing anxieties. Like
Right. But
yeah,
your feeling
yeah.
is betrayed,
the
right?
picture, yeah, the feeling is, yes.
But your action is walk away,
Yeah.
right? And
right,
so
yeah,
again, if you want to change that situation where it's not affecting your emotional health when someone does that
Right.
to you, because they're gonna
Okay.
do it again, I guarantee you,
oh
right?
yeah,
It happens all the
Right.
time. Then you just write about, okay, this is my trigger when somebody doesn't tell me something that I think I should know, right? How
Yeah.
do you want to feel about that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
Right, neutral.
Okay. So neutral's good, right? And so what would you have to be thinking in order to feel neutral?
Yeah. Well, sometimes it could be compromise, not let their feelings be something about me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want it to be that it's something about me.
Right. And so
It's
maybe you could think this means nothing about me,
yeah,
right?
that's what I need to do. Yeah, then I can be neutral on it.
Right. And then that would make you feel neutral. And then what would you do?
Go out and have a drink.
But you probably wouldn't light your nervous system on fire, right?
I would try not to. Right. I would try not to, but I would try to wait to convey maybe the reasons of why I needed it to be different. I mean, in that case, they needed to know. They still don't know because they didn't want to hear about it. They still don't know what happened because they did what they did.
Right.
And I said, so that's like they say, water under the
But can you see how you can kind of rewrite that story? But you're gonna have to practice that, right? Because that was one that lit your nervous system on fire, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And so you would have to definitely practice that. And I would say use the worksheet on that, right? And just write about it and kind of visualize, since you are a visual person, right? Like visualize what would that scenario look like if I did it this way, right?
Right.
And then again, use something as a reminder of that.
Okay.
I have this ring that I use as a reminder for quite a few things, and it says, "I am enough."
Oh, okay. Maybe
And
where did you get that? Maybe
on
we all need to
Amazon,
have
I buy everything on Amazon.
Amazon. I have to go look for it and get
Yeah.
it on my thumb.
Yeah, but I use this ring as a reminder anytime that I'm making something mean, that I'm not enough, or I did it wrong, or right.
Mhm.
I use this as, no, I I know what I'm doing, right? This doesn't mean anything about me. But you have to practice
Mhm.
that, and the ring reminds me to practice. So you can use anything though, just whatever, you could use a rubber band around your wrist. You could use whatever.
My
Snap it
emotional
up.
support cat.
Yep. You could use whatever.
Okay.
It's whatever you will can associate with this think, feel, do cycle.
Mhm.
Yep. Because your brain likes reminders like this, right? Like, because it just becomes another trigger. Really, is all you're doing is kind of using an inanimate object as a trigger to think something different.
Yeah. That's good advice. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it kind of applies to other, I mean, that with me, that'll apply to all my other situations, like the
Mhm.
situation that's not happening tomorrow.
Mhm.
That same thought would have to apply to that, because
Yeah.
when you got someone giving you advice with authority and they think that you're an idiot, but they're giving it advice on something that we already know that. Why are
Mhm.
you acting like I don't know this?
Mhm.
But I mean,
But see
So
how
I-
you're making that mean something about you? She thinks
Yeah.
I'm stupid.
right. And I've tried other methods. It's my sister.
Mhm.
And my mother always says, well, she can't help it because she's got emotional problems. I said, yeah, well, don't put them on me. Those aren't my problem. I let my kids fly the coop. She's still, they're in their doctorate degrees on cell biology and something else. And she's still helicopters and she
Yeah.
still micromanages. And I'm thinking, I let my kids fail.
Yeah.
She never let them fail. And once they didn't win something, they were like, wow, I
Yeah.
lost. No kidding.
Mhm. Yeah.
But anyways,
But again, you got to ask yourself that question. What is it about my sister that triggers something about me, right? What am I making it
Yeah.
mean about me? And I would guess that you have a little bit of guilt about the fact that you don't like her.
Yeah, we tried. You can try. Over the years, there was always a big try and a big push.
Yeah.
And it was always, well, I'm not doing that because you do. Well,
Yeah.
that's stupid because you do it. And I thought,
Right.
well, sorry, you're missing out on life. And she
Yeah.
really has missed out on life. But I mean, I've gotten better. I let her on my bowling team. That's a big thing for me, to let her on my bowling team. And it's worked out nice.
Yeah, good.
There's been no fighting. We've been sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So I am trying.
Yeah. But again, this process is
Yeah.
really, really helpful, right? Because it
Mhm.
takes the emotion kind of out of it, and you're like
Right.
just looking at a formula, right? Okay, what is the formula? And your first attempt might not work, right?
Mhm.
But you just experiment with it. Okay, well, that thought didn't really get me anywhere. So what's another thought I could have that, or maybe a different feeling that might work better? So
Mhm.
that's the key here, is don't beat yourself up if it doesn't work the first time, and just treat it like an experiment or a recipe or a garden, right? Like whatever you resonate with, whether you resonate with scientist or chef or a gardener, kind of look at it in that terms, right? Of how can I just tweak this for the next time? You don't ever throw everything all the way out and start over again, right? You just tweak
No.
what you have.
Tweak it. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
It needs more oregano, right?
Yeah. And yeah.
A little more spice.
Yeah.
More
Makes
spice.
everything
Bam.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. All right, you guys. Anything
right.
else that you want to talk about? I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving.
You too.
Yep.
You too.
All right. Well, if you have questions, just ask me in the group, message me, do whatever. Okay. And
Okay.
I just want to put it out here since I'm recording this. I'm still offering 20-minute sessions for anybody who wants one for free until the end of November. So just let me know if you want one.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm looking
Okay.
at my schedule.
You got 20 minutes. Come on.
Okay. All right.
All right, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.